Hi, I wanted to go over a couple of things that you might try out as you're putting together things for the banner ad. One thing that maybe you've run across, maybe you haven't, are filters. I guess those are things rather than thing, but in any case, I'm going to type out some text here. By the way, I have my type tool selected. Notice that the text tool that comes up, or the type of text that comes up, is dynamic text. But I would recommend whenever you have text that doesn't either need to have user interaction or doesn't need to be adjusted through ActionScript, I would use static text instead. Static text will be embedded into the SWF file so that when you put this up on the server, whether people have the font or not, they'll still see this text the way that you've intended it. Dynamic text, you can embed fonts as well, but that gets a little more manually done rather than automatically done. So anyway, I'm going to just click here and type in some text. It's very imaginative. Notice that I can highlight the type, and again, I'm in the properties palette here. I can adjust the size, or I'm sorry, the font. I can choose the style of the typeface as well. I can crank up the size if I want. And by the way, if you want to extend this box or you want it to wrap, you can grab the little dot that's right up at the top. Notice as I grab this, it resizes the box. As I stretch it out, the box expands to fit the type. So depending on what you're working with, I'm working with static text here. If I choose dynamic text, that moves down to the bottom, and you still make the same kind of adjustments on it. And if we go to input text, this would be something the user would put in. Well, geez, it looks exactly the same as static text. You get the little square there again. Again, I'm going to just have this be static text with the little box on top. Alright, so I have my type. I can put this into the document. It's just going to sit here right on the screen. What I wanted to show you is filters. If I scroll down in Properties with my type selected, there's this filter area down at the bottom. And when I first ran into Flash, it was Flash 8, and they had just introduced filters, and it was very confusing to me where filters could be applied, because sometimes it seems like this filters thing is around and sometimes it's not. If I draw just a standard object here, notice that the filters are not available. If I select the object and I convert it to a symbol, if I make it a graphic, notice that filters are still not available. If I instead convert this symbol from a graphic to either a button, there's filters, or a movie clip, you can also apply filters. So filters can be applied to text, movie clips, and buttons, not to graphic symbols, and not to raw graphics that you have in the document. So again, text, movie clips, buttons are where you'll see filters work. So anyway, I have my text box selected, and I can apply a filter. I'll just click down here and choose, let's just do blur. And right now, it just chooses a default of 5 pixels. Since the chains here, I think by default, are locked. If I make an adjustment on one, it makes an adjustment on the other two. So I'm getting horizontal blurring and vertical blurring. If you want to have that just do horizontal blurring, for example, I can crank out the horizontal blur and notice that it blurs out, but it's still vertically okay. So you can crank this up. I think it goes to 255. I was testing this out earlier, and yeah, it maxes out at 255 pixels. So you can have static filters applied like this, though I don't know why you'd want this to be static. Or you can actually turn this into a tween. text can be motion tweened. So text and movie clips and graphics can be motion tweened, but you can't do a motion tween on something that's not text. So if I click on just this rectangle, oh, I'm sorry, it's a movie clip now. If I were to, let's make a new layer. If I just bring in a rectangle, notice that it's selected and it says drawing object here. If I try to create a motion tween with this, it'll complain and say, hey, you can't do this with a standard graphic. Would you like me to convert it to a symbol? So raw graphics can't be motion tweened. I'll cancel this. But you can do shape tweens, which we'll get into at another point. So in any case, there's some limitations for you. Let me get rid of this movie clip too. Let's just deal with the type for a second. Well, what happens if we want to animate this? Because obviously that's going to be where it's interesting and where you might use it in a banner ad or some other type of project. What I'll do is I'll just click in the timeline, and I'm going to right click on that keyframe and just choose Create Motion Tween. What Flash does is it extends out a second. So basically with CS4, whenever you make a motion tween now in CS4, it extends out the tween to be 1 second. You can make this larger or smaller if you want. It doesn't matter. But what I'm going to do is, now that the playhead is at the end, I'm going to correct this blur so that it's at 0 at this stage. So I notice, again, with properties it's strange. I come up here and notice that in properties I don't see filters. That's because I'm dealing with stuff related to the tween. If I wanted this to rotate a couple of times, I could do that in the tween, and it rotates around in this crazy way. So in any case, have a tendency as you're working to look up in properties and see what it is you're adjusting. If I come to the end here and click on my type, it now says static text, and I can scroll down and choose my blur amount. So let's put this back to 0, and then let's see how this animates over time. So notice that we get this nice clarity. If I test this, I just press return, it tests out. Since I'm going 12 frames a second, this is essentially a 2-second blur. One great thing about Flash CS4 is I can just grab this, and if I want to test this to see, it was now 2 seconds, now it's going to be about a ½ second, I can see how that timing works. One thing I think people have a tendency to do with animation is to make their animations too slow. You go to all this work and you want people to admire it for a little bit. But instead of admiring it, they just kind of sit there and go, wow, this is running slow. So as you fiddle with things, I would guess that most people in the beginning will make their stuff too slow. So as a rule, I would just say, once you've made it, shrink it by half and see if it runs better. If I test this, if I go under control and test the movie, you can get a sense, now it's running in real time, whether that's correct or not. If I extend this or shrink it up a little bit, so it's now only going 3 frames, look how quickly that resolves. Now it's hard to read, partly because I don't have any time after it. So I'm going to come in here, click on the frame after the tween, and extend that out. Let's extend that out so that it's a full second, or I'm sorry, almost 2 seconds beyond. Let's test it now. So you can see it just snaps in and then sits. That little quick snap is usually just what people expect. If you take a longer time, people will actually think that that's too slow. But again, use your own judgment. A student was showing me a site the other day that actually had the blur and then the clarifying image just one frame apart. So it was literally 2 frames. There was blur and then there was a clarifying image. And when you watched it, you just got this sense of popping. The image appeared on stage, the text was on stage, so I can do that just by moving this down a bit. Let's say I put a graphic here. Let's use an oval since I've been using squares so much. Here's an oval. Let's extend it out the length of the animation here. You'll notice that it's gone for a second and then it pops in. And that nice little pop, pretty much does the trick. So again, when you're working, I think there's a tendency to want your animation to be a little too long. And think about how many things you observe in life where all of a sudden you're just surprised by it. It was there and then it wasn't there and then it's there. Same thing's true here. As you're making your little motions, do that. Okay, in the next movie, I want to show you how to make a preset and then apply it. I think that's kind of fun. So that's what you'll see next time. Again, filters you can apply to type, you can apply to movie clips, you can apply to buttons. And we'll actually see that run in the next little movie.